Gambia may be the smallest country in Africa, but it will host the second largest gathering of world leaders in 2022. To successfully host the OIC Summit, the government of the Gambia set up OIC Gambia to mobilize resources for the implementation of key development and infrastructure projects on a scale never seen before. 20 new roads will be constructed across the country, and the Bertel-Harding Highway will be expanded into a dual carriage highway of 2 lanes on each side from the airport to Sting Corner. All people in the Gambia deserve clean water and a constant flow of electricity. Therefore, an entirely new water system will be constructed, including new transmission and distribution networks to meet the increasing demand. In order to provide a more reliable supply of electricity, the OIC Gambia project will replace and double the capacity of the NAWIC transformers and overhead electric cables. We will equip the police with modern apparatus and technical training in an effort to keep the streets of the Gambia safe. OIC Gambia, building today for a better tomorrow.
And coming up over the next 40 minutes or so, government retains fuel prices for a 3rd month running. New floods hit the Gambia's Upper River region, and Britain to announce a new Prime Minister later today, with Foreign Secretary Liz Truss widely tipped to replace Boris Johnson. We'll also have all of Monday's newspaper headlines and a roundup of international news. Thanks for joining us as we usher in a new week here on West Coast Radio and Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. The Gambia Revenue Authority, GRA, informs all contract givers and service providers that withholding tax is an obligation under the Income and VAT Act 2012. Withholding tax is a deduction made by the employer or contract giver from the total amount due to the service provider. Payment, which is to be made at a domestic tax office or GRA partner bank, must be accompanied by a duly completed form and be made by the 15th of the month subsequent to the deduction. The withholding rate is 10% for resident contractors or service providers and 15% for non-resident contractors. No service provider is exempted from withholding tax except where provided for by the Act. For further clarification on withholding tax, contact the Domestic Tax Office 3658692 or 9911355. GRA, collecting revenue for national development. And first up in the newspaper review is the Gambia Daily. It is saying this morning on its front cover, government spent $1.3 billion in fuel subsidy from January to date. We are ready to work with BCC on Banjul Rehabilitation Project, Works Minister says. Gambia to host next ECOWAS Energy Summit. China appreciative of Gambia's adherence to One China policy, and NBR farmers upbeat about harvest season. The Voices Monday headlines are these. Vista, Megabank and $11 million saga laid to rest, according to CBG Governor Saidi. Abubakari Foundation donates to KMC flood victims. American national faces trial for unlawful possession of firearm. Alaji Conte reacts to his election as vice president of GCCI. An NBR agroecology platform calls for more resource mobilization and adoption of best practices. Let's move on to Foraya's front page. 12 hours of heavy rains destroy houses in URR. UTG will not relocate to Faraba Banta this semester. Government agrees not to increase fuel prices. NDMA reviews policy strategy and action plan. Gambia's spy agency watching suspects involved in terrorism financing, and case involving unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition set for judgment. The Point's front page says this morning, Gambia's groundnut trade value depreciates due to aflatoxin. Dabo criticizes government press conference and demands investigation by National Assembly members. Government and oil marketing companies agree to maintain fuel price. Boy arrested for allegedly stabbing student to death. GCCI re-elects Idrissa Mas Job as president. And Minister Silla extends olive branch to Mayoress Low. And today's Good Morning, Mr. President, which is the Point's editorial on Monday, is on the fuel crisis, as the paper puts it, as well as the CBG and airport levy. We'll end with the Standard, and this is what it's saying this morning on its front page. SIS says individuals on watch list as terrorism financiers. Idrissa Mas Job re-elected GCCI president. Gambian father demands justice for son killed in New York City. Gach Global Foundation supports KMC flood victims. Dr. Cisse announces break from partisan politics. Governor says Gambia can't continue to rely on foreign loans for development. Jawara's Secretary General warns Jammeh's menace still lingering. Government ends fuel scarcity after depositing $18 million subsidy. And Parliament urged to open inquiry into Banjul Roads project. And that was your first look at Monday's newspaper front pages. Our thanks as always to The Point, The Voice, Foraya, Gambia Daily, and The Standard. Finally, a luxury car garage in the Gambia with an experienced mechanic working according to stringent best practice standards. At Global Auto Care, all activities are carried out in time and at an exceptional standard because we're in partnership with Central Technique Automobile in Dakar. So taking your car to Global Auto Care is putting your car in the care of mechanics with proven ability in vehicle electrical and hydraulic systems, fault diagnostics and repair. Global Auto Care is right by the Mobile Traffic Police Headquarters in Canifing. For more information, send an email to globalautocare@gmail.com or call on 268-1044 in the Gambia or our Dakar partner on +221 769 047 525. Global Auto Care, your car in the best care. Good morning again and welcome. It's coffee time with Peter Gomez, and we are live on West Coast Radio 92.1 in the Gambia on Monday, the 5th of September, the birth anniversary of our late dear colleague Alaji Koli, who died and was buried on the 11th of May this year. He would have been celebrating only his 39th birthday today. May his kind soul continue to rest in peace. 8.5 minutes past 8 o'clock is our time. The Ministry of Petroleum and Energy has retained fuel prices for the third month running. However, in a statement issued very late on Friday, the government announced that the prices of petrol and diesel remain unchanged, with the state to spend an estimated $18 million to subsidize fuel. The compromise came a day after oil marketing companies across the country refused to sell any fuel, and the breakthrough followed what the government spokesman described as hours of intense negotiations. Well, Lamin Kamara is the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. I began by asking him what the main sticking point was between the OMC and government negotiators.
All right, thank you, Peter. Good morning to you and good morning to all the listeners. The answer to the question is that the issue was agreeing on some of the variables in the pricing structure that the OMCs felt is not favorable to their business. They agree that they'll be losing if they sell at the pumps. So this includes the LC cost foreign exchange rate, among others. And the exchange rate was very paramount. As we know, the fluctuations in the exchange rate can affect some costs. However, we reached a compromise and an understanding which led to the resumption of sales at petrol stations. Government will continue to do the necessary consultations with OMCs always to avoid recurrence of such predicament.
Why has the government decided to keep the price as it's been since July?
Yeah, I think I'll be happy to answer that question. Since the beginning of the Russian-Ukraine war, government has been subsidizing the price of fuel, which went up to a high of $94, while selling at an average of over $70. So you can see the government is subsidizing up to about $24 for any person who buys fuel, a liter of fuel at the pump. So the prices are stagnant because we don't want any increment on the fuel price. If we have to do any change, it has to be a reduction of the price. Because we believe that it's got to a point that any increase definitely will affect the citizens of this country when it comes to affordability of petroleum products.
Now, there have been suggestions that actually government sought a hike, an increase, but couldn't agree terms with the OMCs. How true is that?
I don't know where that's coming from. That's never true. As I said, I'm the chairman of the pricing subcommittee that looks at the prices, and I do know as a committee we recommended no increase, and for the price to stay where it was. So I don't know where that's coming from. All our efforts are just geared towards making fuel products affordable to our people, and the subsidies from government to reduce the prices. And so far, government has incurred over $1.3 billion worth of fuel subsidy and still continues to subsidize the diesel fuel.
Yeah, losing $1.3 billion is, speaking to the GRA Commissioner General recently, this was a problem in terms of the target set for them for 2022. Isn't this a concern to the Petroleum Ministry as well?
Yeah, it's a concern if they don't reach their targets, and which also affects the budget implementation of government. And I know you are aware, government has already gone to the National Assembly to really get some reduction of the budget because some of the revenues are not forthcoming. But however, decision being taken by government also is in the best interest of the citizens of this country. Because just imagine if you could be selling a liter of petrol or diesel at $95, what would that would be a general outcry in the economy, and government has to balance. In as much as we want to collect revenue, but also we need to look at the general affordability of goods and services. And petroleum, it's a key determinant of the cost of some of the goods and services, and even people getting to work, how much they pay, transport costs and all that. So government has to create a fine balance here. And I think government felt that, and which is re-echoed by the IMF and all that, for government in these trying times to really come up and see whatever way they can do to alleviate some of this hardship on their citizens. And this is why government has decided to continue to subsidize the fuel products.
What is the danger that when eventually government decides to succumb to the pressure and increase the price, it wouldn't factor all these delayed months, July, August, and September?
I think we'll still be a responsible government to know that we just don't act in a way that will really affect the general public. So whatever we do, we'll always try to have a fine balance and to see how we can kind of ameliorate any difficulty or shocks in the economy. So that I would say that's our guiding principle.
And that was the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, Lamin Camara. Now, after heavy rains battered the country in late July, the URR was once again lashed by another heavy downpour at the weekend, aggravating the region's inundation problem. Esaba has been hearing about the latest disaster from the Red Cross branch officer.
My name is Dauda Sankare. On the 2nd of September, there was heavy downpour of rain, which leads to flash flood in some communities in the region. It was raining from the 2nd September in the morning till on the 3rd September 2022 in the afternoon. As a result, some communities experienced flash flooding, which affected their livelihood, shelter, clothing, farmlands, livestock, and other essential materials. The magnitude of the disaster was high because about 1,700 people were affected and 40 communities were hit by the disaster. Many people lost their food items, clothing, and other essential materials, including their livestock, which is their source of living.
What was the reaction of the Red Cross there and the authorities in Basse?
When this incident happened, our reaction was to collect first-hand information. This, as a result, URL Red Cross branch and URL NDMA staff and volunteers conducted a rapid assessment to ascertain the magnitude and impact of the disaster. Secondly, we also want to know the number of households affected, number of people affected, number of people displaced, and identify their basic needs for immediate support. Now, based on the assessment, the most vulnerable households were provided with food items.
Tell us the places hardly hit by this flooding.
Now, because the disaster was very serious, all the districts were affected, but most affected districts are Woolly West, that is 13 communities affected, Kantora 8 communities, and Florida 6 communities, based on the reports we received from the volunteers yesterday. But we will give you more updates as we receive more reports from the volunteers in the various districts in the region.
What was the reaction of the affected families? Did they finally accept to stay in the temporary camps you offered them?
Now, many households were displaced, and all of them are currently staying with their relatives. Now, these people, they don't want to be reallocated based on the reasons best known to them to the identified temporary shelter in the region by the Regional Disaster Management Committee. And also, the community members do not have the capacity to cope with the situation. Therefore, they need support in terms of shelter, provision of drainage system to avoid the occurrence of the same incident in the future.
Finally, your region have experienced devastating flooding within the space of a month. What would be your recommendations and plea to partners to help mitigate the damage?
Now, my recommendations will be to support the affected households to rebuild their damaged structures and also support them with food items and also provide a system for them. And now we also want to engage more on disaster risk reduction activities in the communities. But the Gambia Society will implement more disaster risk reduction activities, nature-based solutions, but also will support affected households with non-food items, hygiene kits, and possibly cash for shelter. However, additional resources are needed for the Gambia Society to support more affected people across the country. Now, Gambia Society is also in contact with other partners and philanthropists in the region. But finally, I just want to talk about nature-based solution. The term nature-based solution refers to the sustainable management and use of natural features and processes to tackle social environment challenges. And these challenges include such as climate change, water security, water pollution, food security, human health, biodiversity loss, and disaster risk management.
And that was Dauda Sankare, URR Branch Officer, Gambia Red Cross, speaking to Esaba from Basse. Well, one group already harnessing the power of nature to help communities overcome the growing threat of floods is the Gambia Environmental Alliance, or GEA. This coming weekend, it plans to embark on a major mangrove planting exercise at the famous Banjul Tanbi along Bond Road. Well, Mohammed Haidara has been talking to Louise Taylor about the event, which he says will enhance biodiversity while reducing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
This mangrove restoration we are about to embark on in Banjul, Bond Road, Tanbi Wetland on the 10th of September is because we as an alliance, we have over 40 civil society and community-based organizations that we are coordinating to make sure that we look at areas that are very vulnerable to sea level rise, that are very vulnerable to climate-induced crises like the recent flash flood that happened in Banjul, and then areas that are very vulnerable to soil intrusion. So we realize that Banjul being a historical site for this nation, then we deem it is necessary that we have been advocating for the government to promote resilience. And that's been the case. So we, as an action-oriented environmental organization, we deem it is necessary for us to lead the way by, seeking partners' support to make sure that we do this restoration at a very key site, that is Banjul Tanbi Wetland Bond Road, to make sure that we restore the depleting mangroves that are currently, facing dieback because the land is currently depleting. And that being the case, it's making the land more vulnerable to, to serve as a waterlogged area. And that being the case, then we want to restore those land to make sure that we revive the mangrove forest in those wetlands, so that it will also serve as a buffer to protect our main capital city from flooding, as well as from sea level rise, as well as from windstorm.
So we'd like you to tell us some of the challenges you're faced with in this exercise in terms of support
or getting these mangroves?
Definitely, support is very key. That's why we even started reaching out to partners, because we deem we alone cannot do it. We need the support and cooperation and the support of stakeholders to make sure that we achieve this thing, because environmental work, it needs a lot of collective stakeholders to come on board to make sure that it lasts long. Because what we are talking about, resilient means, it has to be sustained, and to make sure that the work can be there for years to come, to see that, there is impact, positive impact, So that being the case, we are definitely having challenges, because we just recently formed the alliance. Currently, we don't have any support, but we are glad that Standard Chartered Bank being the first bank that we are collaborating. So wanted to see more private sector coming on board to make sure that they support this environmental organization that are working toward trying to promote climate change adaptation, to make sure that we protect our own people, protect our own resources from the climate crisis.
So we would like you to tell us some of the impact of this mangrove planting. With regards to climate change.
Climate change, exactly. Yeah. So let's say like in the Gambia here, and mangroves play a very key role when it comes to sequestering carbon, which is the reason why we are talking about climate change, because the earth is getting more warmer than before. So mangrove play a key role, that can absorb huge amount of CO2, and it is one of the main species of plant that can absorb more CO2 than any other plant on land. So actually mangrove is very vital, and not only that, then mangrove also play a key role when it comes to sea level rise, because whenever you have mangrove within the riverbank, then it protects those communities. It serves as a buffer, as a barrier to break the windstorm, as well as the flow of heavy wave of water that might destroy community. Mangrove serve as a buffer to prevent those incidents from happening. But not only that, the mangrove ecosystem also play a key role, especially Gambia, that is highly dependent on fish, because mangroves serve as a sponging area where marine species go there and lay millions of eggs, which end up benefiting the nation. And not only that, then mangrove also serve as a source of livelihood to women that are into oyster harvesting. So mangrove play a lot of key benefit, in our ecosystem.
And that was Mohamed Haidara of the Gambia Environmental Alliance. He spoke there to Louise Taylor. And let's stay with the theme of water, because authorities in the U.S. state of Mississippi say they can't say when a water crisis gripping the capital, Jackson, will be resolved. Tens of thousands of people are without safe drinking water after flooding damaged a water treatment plant. But critics argue it's just the latest in a series of problems driven by inequality. Here's the ABC's Jake McNeil.
When word got around Jackson of major damage to a local water treatment plant, Brooke Floyd did what she could to try to make life easier for her family.
I filled my bathtub full of water. It took about 2 hours to fill it with water before we lost complete water. And I did that so we would have the ability to flush our toilets. And then we were using bottled water and jugs of water to wash up.
Almost a week after supply was cut off to the city of more than 150,000 people, officials say water pressure has started to improve across large parts of Jackson. But it's still not safe to drink, and the administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Deanne Criswell, has told CNN it's not yet clear when that will change.
And so it's going to happen in phases, right? The focus right now is making sure we can get bottled water out, but also we're providing temporary measures to help increase the water pressure so people can at least flush their toilets and use the faucets. The longer term and the midterm about how long it's going to take to actually make it safe to drink, I think that we have a lot more to learn about what it's going to take to get that plant up and running.
Jackson's water problems didn't begin with the flooding that damaged the treatment plant. A boil water notice had already been in place for several weeks due to poor quality, an issue many locals say they've long become used to. And last year, the city lost water for a month after a harsh winter storm. Carly Akuno is the Executive Director of Cooperation Jackson, one of a number of organisations working to help people in need. He's not surprised by the current situation, pointing to decades of underinvestment in critical infrastructure.
Well, to be real and plain and simple with the audience, it's racism. Jackson is a majority black city. It's been a majority black city since the 1980s. And when as a result of, white flight, which has started to happen in the 60s when this transition began, There was intentional capital flight that went with the white flight. And there's just been no fundamental repair to the system since then.
The crisis has heightened existing political divisions, with the city's Democratic mayor and the state's Republican governor arguing over who's responsible. But as residents help each other to distribute bottled water, they're just hoping the spotlight on their community will finally lead to much-needed spending.
And that was the ABC's Jake McNeil reporting. We definitely have water supply issues at London Corner, but they are not as bad as in Jackson in Mississippi. 26.5 is our time. Live on West Coast Radio, I am Peter Gomez. It's coffee time on Monday, the 5th of September, 2022. Back after this.
Building the largest international conference centre in the region, a 5-star hotel with state-of-the-art facilities, first-class mobility services, and improving the VVIP experience at the Banjul International Airport, OIC Gambia will position the Gambia as the leading conference destination in West Africa. With our partners in the tourism sector, we will reinforce the preeminent position of our nation, the Smiling Coast, as a go-to destination. The OIC Gambia will create strategic partnerships that calls for the involvement of local talent and businesses as a matter of requirement. In short, OIC Gambia projects will create jobs, boost commerce, accelerate growth, improve the urban outlook and lifestyles of many families across the Gambia. So let's support the OIC Gambia as it prepares us for one of the biggest global events. OIC Gambia, building today for a better tomorrow.
The Gambia Revenue Authority wishes to inform the general public that any person who disposes a capital asset in the Gambia is liable to pay capital gains tax. Capital assets include land, machinery, company shares, interest in partnership, etc. It does not include depreciable assets and stock in trade. Also, any Gambian resident who sells a capital asset outside the Gambia is liable to pay capital gains tax. The rate charged depends on whether the disposal is made by an individual, a company, partnership, trustee, etc. For individuals, the capital gains tax rate is 15% of the gains or 5% of the consideration, whichever is higher. For companies, partnerships, trustees, etc., the rate is 25% of the gains or 10% of the consideration, whichever is higher. It is worthy to note that the seller of the disposed capital asset bears the responsibility for the payment of the capital gains tax. Pay your taxes to build a nation.
Do you get nervous when asked to speak in public? Do you get butterflies in your stomach? Do you avoid eye contact with people when giving a speech? Do you want to develop the art of thinking on your feet and thought processes that make you bring passion to every talk, presentation, and speech that you give? What does it take to become an effective public speaker? You can be trained, you can be coached, and you can be mentored. Join us at the Forbes Academy. We are here for all aspiring public speakers to help you transform your desire into skill. I am Pastor Forbes, CEO and lead trainer. For full details, send us an email on contact@forbesacademy.net or send us a WhatsApp message on +220 346 2155. Come, join the wonderful world of public speaking and become a good, a great, and a global public speaker.
20% extra megabyte bonus from Gamcell Yai Borom.
20% bonus
on every data bundles you buy.
So you mean if you buy 500 megabytes at a cost of $150, you get 100 megabytes extra bonus?
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. And if you buy 1,500 megabytes at a cost of $255, you get extra 300 megabytes. Buy 50, 100, 200, 500, and so on. I just bought 1,000 and got my 200 extra megabytes bonus. Just buy your credit from any of our Gamcell branches or agents and dial *302 amount has and send to get your bundle with your extra 20% bonus.
Yes, you've heard it. Keep on browsing and enjoy Gamcell's 20% megabytes bonus on every purchase you make.
Gamcell, Yai Borom.
Welcome to the epitome of class and prestige, ATMK Boutique, the latest house of fashion in the Gambia. Specializing in the best brands and fabrics, making trends globally and bringing it to your doorstep. We deal with Jesna from Austria, lace fabrics from Switzerland, till lace, silky soie from Dubai. ATMK Boutique also has the latest clutch purses and handbags that complements your outfits. Slide in and catwalk in style with our Cavalli, Bestie Johnson, Calvin Klein ladies shoes. ATMK has brought in silky abayas for ladies and jalabas for men. ATMK also deals in 5% gold-plated accessories, all from the capital of gold in Dubai. You can also find original natural hair wigs, wavy wigs, straight blonde, and exotic colors, accompanied with John Frieda hair moisturizer, touch-up creams, and dream curls for curly hair. So visit us at Bruceby Phase 2 at the Zac Plaza, right before Bruceby Police Station. You can also call the CEO, Aisha Denton Kanyi, on any of these numbers below. Or visit us on Facebook and Instagram on Aisha Denton ATMK Boutique. ATMK Boutique, the home of royalty.
And the numbers to reach them at are these: 744-2445 and 535-9999. It's 8:32. If you'd like to advertise on the program or simply make an announcement, get in touch with our main man, Jibril Jassi. He's on 999-0107 and 787-0107. And if you call and you don't get him, you can try me. I'm on 9910959 and 7711599. Now, from anti-monarchist to Prime Minister, it's widely assumed Britain's Foreign Secretary Liz Truss will be announced as the Conservative Party leader to replace Boris Johnson later today. If so, it means her swearing in by the Queen might be a slightly awkward affair, as the ABC's Nick Dole reports from London.
Backflips, U-turns, changes of heart, whatever you want to call them, they're all too common in politics. But few British MPs have had to explain their changing views as much as Conservative frontbencher Liz Truss. Here she is as a student politician with Liberal Democrats calling for the end of the monarchy.
We do not believe that people should be born to rule. And we were filmed asking members of the public what they thought about the monarchy. Do you know what they said? They said, abolish them. We've had enough.
She was just 19 back then and now regrets those comments. More recently, as a Conservative, in the lead-up to the referendum, she argued Britain should stay in the European Union.
But that is why that European market is so precious, because we share the same regulations, we share the same rules.
She now says she's changed her mind and she's a staunch Brexiteer. As Foreign Secretary, it's been her job to work closely with European leaders. But last week, during her campaign to become the next British Prime Minister, she was asked this.
President Macron, friend or foe?
The jury's out. But if I...
The Tory members listening seem to love it, and that's showing up in the polls. While her competitor, former Chancellor Rishi Sunak, is favoured by the wider electorate, Conservative voters prefer Ms Truss, and they're the ones who'll decide via a ballot. If she is successful, she'll have a huge challenge on her hands, fixing a cost-of-living crisis. Britain's facing the prospect of a cold and potentially dark winter caused by skyrocketing energy bills. Speaking on the eve of the leadership announcement, she promised she'd address it, and it's expected she'll try to open more of Britain up to fracking.
Within 1 week, I will make sure there is an announcement on how we are going to deal with the issue of energy bills and of long-term supply to put this country on the right footing for winter.
Rishi Sunak is waiting for the results to be announced, but he wasn't sounding confident in this interview with the BBC.
If you don't win this time, would you ever run again?
Oh, gosh, we've just finished this campaign, Laura, so I need to recover from this one. But I look forward to supporting a Conservative government.
As usual, the Queen is in Balmoral for the summer, and given her mobility issues, it's been decided the incoming Prime Minister will go to see her in Scotland rather than make her come to London. If it's Liz Truss making the journey, she might be hoping the Queen isn't aware of her teenage comments about the monarchy. But this will be the Queen's 15th Prime Minister, and it's likely she's done her research.
Yep, nothing ever escapes the Queen, trust me. That was the ABC's Nick Dole reporting. Now, when you hear the names Saddam Hussein, Idi Amin, Fidel Castro, and Pol Pot, I'm guessing your first thought isn't food, is it? All were brutal dictators responsible for the death and deprivation of so many people in the nations they ruled. But even a dictator has got to eat. And Polish journalist Witold Szablowski took it upon himself to track down the chefs of those dictators, as well as the cook for Albanian strongman Enver Hoxha. The result is a highly acclaimed book called How to Feed a Dictator. He spoke about the book earlier to the ABC's Julian Moreau.
Well, it took years of research, and the extreme example of that is the chef of Saddam Hussein, who had been hiding since the American invasion to Iraq. And actually, he was hiding with a fake name, with fake identity. And he didn't dream about some, Polish weird journalist trying to spot all the chefs cooking for dictators. So in this case, it took me 3 years to find him and another 6 months to convince him to talk and to, make him feel safe, that he can tell me all the stories from Saddam's kitchen and from Saddam's private life, because the chefs, they knew everything.
How did this weird Polish journalist come to be interested in dictators and the chefs who cook for them?
So the weird Polish journalist was a chef himself in his mid-20s. When I graduated from Warsaw University, I went to Copenhagen and I ended up just cooking in a restaurant. And when I came back to Poland and I began my work as a journalist, I kept in mind that it's amazing to be in a professional kitchen because chefs are amazing storytellers. And then I saw a movie called Cooking History about the chefs in the war zones. And there, in that brilliant movie, for the first time, I saw a dictator's chef, the chef of Marshal of Yugoslavia, Josip Broz Tito. And that was like a turning point for me. Then I thought, okay, chefs of dictators have all those components: history, political relations, and food. Great thing to write about. That's how it all started.
And how right you were. Witold, could you chart out for us the types of relationships that you discovered between cooks and their dictators?
So they are always very close to the family, because when you are a personal cook of a dictator, you must be very trusted. And those dictators, they have this natural instinct that a chef, especially personal chef, shouldn't be stressed. So they were horrible for all the other people, but it was like the chef of Saddam Hussein. He was living in a luxury, in a golden cage. He knew that Saddam was committing crimes, war crimes, that he was a horrible person. But for him personally, he was like a great uncle, giving him tips if the food was good.
And if you'd like to hear the full interview, go to our website, www.wcr.gm, where you can also download the program. And with Polish writer Witold Szablowski's thoughts, we end this edition of Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. But lots to look forward to tomorrow, with more time available to us, of course, as well as Alhaji Barrow tackling politicians with their endless lies. We welcome back Shola Mahoney with another monthly podcast. Don't ask me what's in store for September. He usually keeps his cards very close to his chest. But one thing I do know is he always has great stuff. So do come along for the Shola Mahoney podcast. Being Tuesday, we will also have our friends on the program, Information Minister Lamin Queen Jammeh and Presidential Advisor and Government Spokesman Ibrahim G. Sankare. For now, though, it's goodbye from me, Peter Gomez, on behalf of Esa Ba and Louis Taylor and the entire production team.